Give it about one more minute. Look like people are still joining. Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to the Docs Talk Speaker Series. Today, I'd like to introduce Dr. Maria Kroll. She'll be introducing our speakers. Dr. Kroll.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our speaker series. Thank you. Should I begin? So I'm going to first introduce to you Dr. Sheniece Martin Stancil-El, DMP, RN, CLN, clinical nurse leader, is a passionate nurse leader and healthcare advocate for over 20 years of experience in the field, including 15 years as a registered nurse. She currently serves as the nursing director for diversity, equity, and inclusion at the University of Rochester Medical Center, where she leads strategic efforts to build inclusive and equitable healthcare systems. Dr. Martin Stancil-El is the co-founder and CEO of Life Matters LLC, an organization dedicated to health, wellness, and advocacy. A former executive board member of the Rochester Black Nurses Association, she now serves on the board of Sigma Theta Tau International Honor Society of Nursing, Epsilon XI chapter. Her work bridges clinical excellence, education, and community impact. With deep commitment to health equity, she is also a proud member of the Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, serving as the local chapter of Psi Omega Theta in Rochester, New York's Birth Equity Committee co-chair, and is known for her purpose-driven leadership, mentorship, and service to others. Welcome, Dr. Martin Stancil. She's going to be speaking to us on the topic of empowering nursing champions for inclusive care, a theater of healthcare equity approach to equity and inclusion. Thank you.
Oh, I have the floor. Good evening.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. Let me just share my screen real quick. Okay, good evening. So you've heard my quick intro. So I originally was going to present this at the Docs of DOC conference last year, but I had a conflict, so they invited me to come tonight. And so I wanted to talk about a little bit about the project that I did, which is really not a project, but just part of my role as an inaugural nursing director for diversity, equity, inclusion. What I noticed is I've been in this role for 4 years now. And when I first started doing my listing tours around the hospital, I gathered information from everyone that's in nursing practice, and those who are in nursing practice are our RNs, our nurse practitioners, our PCTs, and our unit secretaries. And what I was hearing from them is that they don't feel like they have the right tools and skills to really speak up for themselves or advocate for themselves, or how to handle inequities that they may have witnessed, or things that come up when they're caring for patients, and they don't really feel like they have the right tools to really address those type of issues. And so that's what made me think of this, using theater for the healthcare equity approach to equity and inclusion, empowering nurses. And so I do have to do a quick acknowledgement. This was a project that was supported by the University of Rochester CTSA Award. I provided the number, and it was from the National Center for Advancing Translational Sciences of the National Institutes of Health. And it's just all of my content, and it does not necessarily represent the official views of the National Institute of Health. I did receive funding for this retreat from the University of Rochester Medical Center Clinical and Translational Science Institute. It was an equity-focused dissemination and implementation mini grant program that they provide nurses, clinical nursing research center for nurses. I was awarded up to $2,000 and I used the whole thing for the development, strengthening, or evaluation of equity-focused dissemination and implementation research. And so that happened this event happened last March. And so like I kind of illustrated that the problem was that healthcare professionals were not feeling like they were able to lead equity efforts because of either feeling unprepared to address bias or microaggressions, not really having the time and spaces to really build DEI skills and really develop those health equity skills. And oftentimes what we've been seeing is that they will receive these one size fits all DEI or cultural humility trainings, and they were very passive and not really providing the right kind of tools that were needed for these types of situations. And so the whole purpose of me developing this retreat was to really help build the nurses and staff confidence in DEI, providing them the capacity and the action among nurses and as well as their nurse leaders. And also how I did this is I did it through a retreat using Theater for Healthcare Equity. And I'm not sure who's really familiar with Theater of the Oppressed, but it's basically a spinoff of that. And the Theater of the Oppressed is basically a framework. It's a theater-based framework to really help individuals engage in different activities that shed light on individuals who are oppressed. However, what we saw was that the audience within our healthcare system is that of members who are the oppressors and not that of the oppressed. So we retitled the name of it to Theater of Healthcare Equity. That really shows the audience is really those of who are the oppressors compared to those who are the oppressed, like Theater of the Oppressed. And so some of our main focus areas were bias, microaggressions, team building, and in providing inclusive care. And like I said before, the goals of my retreat was to help equip a small group. So we started with our cultural inclusion champions, which are housed of nurses who are RNs, LPNs. We have techs, ambulatory techs. I've invited interpreter services into our program. We have HR in our program. It's a vast variety of different individuals who encompasses the cultural inclusion champions. And these are basically the individuals who are helping me lead equity differences in initiatives within the hospital setting, because I'm still an office of one. I needed the help and support of individuals that are on the unit. So we use the cultural inclusion champions. And so basically the whole goals was really help them be able to reflect critically on inequities in nursing for both patients and staff, help them practice courageous conversations with each other in real life situations, develop inclusive leadership, and move from awareness to advocacy. So we want them to, one, be aware of the inequities, but also be able to have those advocacy skills. And so, like I said, I did a listening tour. This was a partnership with a theater-based facilitator who actually helps train individuals in this work. Her name is Carly Goff, and she actually helps me. She trained me how to do theater-based facilitation and how to do the activities. Everything that we did within the retreat was informed by staff doing listening tours, and it was definitely supported by nursing leadership because we did need extra funds to support the retreat. So some of the activities included an icebreaker, because this was the first time that a lot of people were able to see each other, because during the time of COVID, we didn't do a lot of in-person retreats. So this was actually the first retreat that our Cultural Inclusion Council actually had. So we did an icebreaker. We did a network bingo, which basically helps individuals learn who is else on their council, who are their other equity leaders within the hospital. Because what I'm finding is that a lot of times people work in silos and they don't know who their other equity-minded leaders are. So we did the network bingo to kind of allow individuals to get familiar with who those equity leaders are. And we also did a gender affirming presentation to, since we are a hospital that is recently accepting gender affirming surgeries, we wanted to prepare our nurses and staff on how to actually engage with our gender diverse patients. So about the actual theater-based activities, we did blind cars, which is basically when participants took turns being the blind car, which will, in the sense of the actual activity, symbolizes the patients, and then the driver symbolizes the healthcare providers, and then they would switch. And so during the activity, they would use tactile cues. The blind cars were then guided by the drivers through space with different obstacles. And this really helps them envision embodying the experience of how patients navigate through our healthcare systems with limited autonomy. And so it really helped them visualize how our patients are they oppressed, and how they depend a lot on the healthcare providers and us nurses to really help them navigate the system. And then we also, the purpose of this activity was to really heighten their empathy and stress the importance of trust, communication, and clear direction, and why it's important to build that trust and rapport with your patients. And then our next activity was walking the space. Participants were giving different identities and asked to move through the different spaces while embodying these roles. This then exposed them to different stereotypes, power dynamics, and a lot of unconscious bias associated with those various identities. For example, I said, walk like you are a pregnant woman. And at that time, I was not pregnant, but a year later, I was pregnant. And I just think about how I did not walk like half those people were walking like a pregnant woman. So basically showed them how they had their own internal bias, they had their own internal stereotypes, and it brought that awareness out. And we had debriefings after each activity. So this, like I said, prompted internal reflection and discussion about intersectionality within healthcare. Our last activity included role play, where we actually did a theater base. We set it up like we're in an actual setting, and we picked two different scenarios that the audience asked that they needed help with addressing. So one of them was using pronouns when interacting with a patient who is non-binary, and the other one was racial inequities of a microaggression. And so what we did is we acted out real life scenarios that some of the facilitators may have been involved in, or something that a member of the audience said that happened to them. And so we reacted that out. And then we had the audience tell us how to do things differently. What would you have done differently in this situation? So it really helps them learn through practice and rehearsing. And so it was a safe space that allowed them to really develop these skills of how to respond effectively in real clinical settings. It provided them approaches to really help de-escalate different biases or different stereotypes, or what should they do in the event that they do encounter someone who's being a microaggressor, or vice versa. And then after each activity, we did do debriefing just to make sure, one, that everyone was still safe, because a lot of things that are said can be very sensitive. And so we wanted to make sure that everyone still felt safe at the end. So some of the debriefing questions were, after we asked, how did it feel to be the driver? How did it feel to be the car? What surprised you? What type of biases did you see? How did it feel walking like a CEO? How did it feel in these situations, to really help them reflect and get open-ended questions from them? And what we saw was that this really helped participants connect with exercises in real world application. And so these are just some images of us actually engaging in the activities. The upper left is the blind car. So the person is standing in front, they have their eyes closed, and then they have their arms out to kind of create a safety barrier. And the person behind them is the driver. And the second upper right is the same thing. And then the bottom right is us walking the space and using up the space to do different character identities, whatever was called out in the room at the time. And so I did collect some data. So let me see, we had 83% participation. We had 35 individuals out of 42 of the total council members actually show up for the retreat. I sent out a survey that was vetted and by one of our research experts, and we had 100% survey response rate for the 35 sample size. And what we saw, that it increased members' DEI comfort and confidence in addressing different microaggressions and biased conversations. All said that they will recommend the retreat. We also did collect demographic data, so we couldn't collect certain demographics, so we only collected how much years did they have experience of nursing or in DEI. And so 74 to 70% of them had at least 5 years or less in DEI. So they were not too familiar with the work. We also did a Likert scale, and the participants then self-identified. We used a diversity engagement survey, which 22 items, and it showed the lowest scoring item was that I feel that I am an integral part of my department or school. So we wanted to see how they felt in their current institution. The highest scoring item was I feel that my work or studies contribute to the mission of the institution. And then for the specific of the retreat, we had the lowest scoring. The sessions and content covered a wide range of DEI topics. That was our lowest scoring. And then our highest scoring was they rated the effectiveness of the speakers and facilitators, and that was the highest ones. And so we also collected qualitative data. And so some of what the input that the members said was, this was a wonderful day that was well worth time off the unit. Thank you. I feel empowered, very informative, great networking. It was a very comfortable atmosphere. I felt safe to participate. Such an innovative retreat, extremely eye-opening and impactful, increased my understanding of awareness of bias in the workplace. So these were some of the highly positive ones that were shared by some of the individuals who attended the retreat. And so some of the lessons learned was that nurses crave a safe, interactive, equity learning space. We also learned that theater builds empathy and insight, and just short retreats can really spark long-term change. Like I still have individuals talking about this retreat. We're actually planning our second retreat. This is, like I said, this is our first one last year. We're planning our second one this October. And that is it. And this is all, some of us, because some of us got cut off. This is us last year at the retreat. Lots of differences within one photo, different identities, different genders, different religions, all in one photo, working together. My contact information, and I hope you all enjoyed my quick session.
If anybody has questions, we will have Q&A at the end of our next speaker's presentation. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. If you don't want to speak up, speak out. So our next presentation will be Dr. Kechi Iheduru-Anderson. Sorry about that. And Dr. Danielle McCamey. I'm going to introduce to you, and they will be speaking on Black nursing faculty in academia and autoethnographic exploration of resilience and self-empowerment. Dr. Kechi is a professor and the inaugural director of the RN to BSN nursing program at Central Michigan University's College of Health Professions in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. She holds dual doctorates, a Doctor of Education in Higher Education Leadership from Central Michigan University, and a Doctor of Nursing Practice in Nursing Education from Regis College in Weston, Massachusetts. A recognized leader in nursing education and equity, Dr. Kechi is an inaugural fellow of the Academy of Diversity Leaders in Nursing and a fellow of the Association of Black Nurse Faculty Leadership and Public Policy Mentoring Fellowship. Her research focuses on advancing equity and inclusion through anti-racism in nursing practice, leadership, and education. Her work has been cited over 1,000 times and continues to influence the field at national and international levels. Dr. Kechi has earned numerous honors for her scholarship and leadership. In 2024, she was inducted into Sigma Nursing International Nurse Researcher Hall of Fame. Additional accolades include the ANA Massachusetts Excellent in Nursing Education Award in 2016, Central Michigan University's College of Health Professions Faculty Excellence Award in 2021, and the Nightingale Award for Excellence in Nursing Research. In 2023, DMPs of Color honored her legacy and impact by establishing a national named award, the Dr. Kechi Iheduru-Anderson Scholar Award in recognition of her outstanding scholarly contributions to the nursing profession. That same year, she also received the Excellence in Academic Leadership Award from the Association of Black Nurse Faculty, Inc., and the Exemplary Research and Scholarship Award from Central Michigan's University Office for Institutional Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Dr. Danielle McCamey, who will be joining her to speak. I will give you a brief bio. Dr. Danielle McCamey is an acute care nurse practitioner, assistant professor, and assistant dean for strategic partnerships at the Johns Hopkins School of Nursing. Her work focuses on DNP prepared nursing workforce, diversity, and development. She holds a DNP from Georgetown University. She is the founder of DNPs of Colors, ABNF member, author affiliation, Johns Hopkins University School of Nursing in Baltimore, Maryland. Welcome. And you have the floor.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. I do not have slides. I was hoping that we can have some conversation, but I wanted to just share that the presentation, like our first speaker, was supposed to be presented by Danielle and myself in last year's DNPs of Color conference, but we didn't have the space because of all the other wonderful presentations. So this presentation is actually based on one of our published work, Voices of Resilience, an autoethnographic exploration of the contributions of Black nursing faculty in nursing education. So obviously, why did we think that it was necessary, to go through this route of doing an autoethnography? So if, many of us, we are aware of ethnographic studies, which is what we are usually taught, in nursing education. Everybody knows about ethnography as a type of qualitative study. What they don't tell you much about is autoethnography, that is writing about your own experience and understanding, in literature, the silencing of voices of nurses of color, of DNPs of color. Our experiences, our contributions are not always highlighted, right, in the space where we work. Oftentimes, we are champions in silence. The work we do, many other people take the credit for it. So we decided, 10 nursing faculty, of color decided that we are going to, tell our own stories, what our contributions are like and what experiences are like for us as we, wade into, the river of academia. If you've been there, you understand how difficult it can be to transition, and actually also sometimes to find happiness in that space. So, and the kind of impact that we make for our students, for newer faculty of color. So we decided we're going to take a look at, what our experiences are, and focusing it really on what our contributions in academia is, some of those barriers, facilitators, and how we build community, within nursing academia. So that's how we came up with this study. And like I said, without having the slide, one of the reasons we wanted to share the contribution is also to encourage and empower, from the work that we are doing, other individuals to collaboratively also share their experiences from their spaces. Because unless those experiences are shared, and then the collective or the common experiences are then explored, it seems like when you are having those experiences, you are experiencing it alone. You feel like the experience is just yours, that perhaps, you turn it inward, because sometimes we are made to believe that the problem is us instead of the institution or the environment where we find ourselves. However, when those experiences are shared collectively and understood as not a singular experience, but a collective experience of individuals who share similar identities in several different ways, that, the impact is much greater. Also, the other thing is, as people of color, we also understand that sometimes research is done on us instead of for us, right? I don't know how many of you participate in research studies. You find that people come into our community, they use our voices and our experiences, they take it away, and they give nothing in return. Sometimes in the community, whatever resources they have, we only benefit if, within the short period of time people are within our communities. And once they leave our community, the resources live with them. So they leave nothing behind. So in beginning to explore autoethnographic studies for nurses of color in different settings, different levels, because this is not just for individuals who have their doctoral degree. Because when you do it as a collective, you have different experiences and different strengths for individuals who can share those experiences collectively, put it into words that can be published and disseminated through presentations. So that is really the essence. But I wanted to, the other thing about collaborative experiences in autoethnography and how individuals might get that done, you're never going to be in a hurry, obviously, because when you're working in a team, you have to corral everybody and try to manage everybody's time as you are working on the subject of interest that you might have, on the experiences that you might have. And that is the other thing, right? It's not always just that experience within a specific context. It could be any experience. It could be an experience of, championing DEI, experience of, going through a DMP dissertation, whatever those experiences are, especially the ones that you triumph, right? The ones where you come up, victorious, where the stresses and the challenges did not cripple you, but you triumphed over them, are worth sharing, because when we do that, we also give other people the encouragement and the empowerment to pursue their dreams and not think that those dreams are far-reaching or that is beyond their reach. So that's one of the good things as we are looking for small ways to sort of support each other during these times. Autoethnography can be one of those ways that we can do that. But I wanted to also share some of the findings in the study for these 10 nurse educators. We use the resiliency framework actually because as a person of color in nursing, in healthcare, in nursing education or higher education in this country, you have to sort of find your fountain of resilience in order to go through, endure, and keep coming back and doing the work over and over again. So we found that this was more appropriate. And we didn't look at it from a victim point of view. When we use the word resilience or the framework of resilience, we looked at it as, sort of a victorious, and looking at how we triumph over the challenges that are present in our environment. So some of the findings that were very common amongst these individuals was, of course, the culture of oppression. Many of us experience that. We know it's there in the workplace, and that those cultures are baked into the system because of structural racism. But also the other thing that we find is a culture of silence. And this culture of silence sometimes comes from being made to think that the problem is you and not the institution or the culture of the institution, where you are invited into an institution, but you are expected to assimilate into the institution. So one of the examples is like, when you invite a vegetarian to dinner to your home, and you don't have any vegetarian meal, you make meat and expect that individual who is vegetarian, knowing they're vegetarian, to adapt to your own, kind of food. So that's what many of us do experience when we end up in some of these spaces, rather than saying to bring your whole self as you are, and, and we make space and room for you so that you can thrive. One of the things, one of the nurses, the individual said is like, The narrative shared here are by no means near all I have encountered, endured, and overcome as a Black nursing faculty. However, the narrative provides insight into my perspective of the experiences that shaped my life in academic nursing and how I remember, feel, and interpret them as I reflect on those experiences at this time. So that's the other thing. You don't have to remember, it is your experience and your interpretation of your experience. So whatever the experience is that you want to talk about, it is how you remember it in that point in time and how it has influenced you, to the point, to where you are at that point in time. And even the same experience when shared later on, when you have had more time to reflect more on it, can also be something, can also be slightly different in how it's seen. Another thing is mentoring, that many of us don't have mentors, but many of us, because of the experience of lack of mentoring, tend to, in turn, mentor others and see it as our role to create that legacy, to support other people who are coming behind us, to make sure that their experiences are better and, than what we experience, in the spaces where we find ourselves. And so I'm kind of sharing many of the positive aspects of the experience because I think many of us already understand what some of the negative aspects are. And another one is self-empowerment, that many of us find ways to self-empower, to empower ourselves, and then take that empowerment to try to thrive within the environment that we find ourselves. So, and like I said, again, resilience is the topic of the study. So many of us talked about what resilience feels like, what resilience means for you. And what many of the common thing is like, oh, I find that I must persevere no matter what. I find that I have to change my way of thinking in order to survive. There's a lot of reframing, within the space so that many of us can thrive. And other people say, well, I have to, rely on my strong will and leadership experience, either from the military or from the home or for having survived other traumatic events, bring it into the work setting as a way to try to survive the environment that might not be very accommodating or very, or create spaces for belonging, for many individuals. And one of the other bigger things is the creating your own village, how important it is to create your own village in whatever environment you find yourself. And that village doesn't necessarily have to be in the workspace. It could mean creating a network of individuals outside of your immediate environment to help support you, individuals you can call to vent, because sometimes it's better. You need that space. Sometimes you also need the separation of your work and your home. So you need that other space in between where you create your own village of individuals who are perhaps in the same field, in the same kind of work, so that you can share those experiences and they can understand it without you having to explain in detail or without those individuals doubting your experience or questioning whether you are sure what you say you experience is really what you experience. So they highlighted the importance of creating that village of your own and also creating a legacy, making sure that when you are in an environment that you create, support students, support newer employees, invite other individuals who may be seeking employment when the space or the openings are available, so that you can create more opportunities for individuals, so that we can limit this whole idea of being the one and only in these spaces, because that's the only way that can be done. So, like I said, last but not least is, one of the bigger things is I am more than enough. Sometimes you are made to feel that you are not enough. So that remember that you are more than enough. You're not just enough, you are more than enough. You bring more than enough to the table, and you don't have to go above and beyond to prove that you are more than enough. And finding your voice and using that voice for good, for self-advocacy, and for advocacy for other individuals who may not be able to speak for themselves in those spaces. Your students, other persons of color who are not, or, other people with, marginalized identities, because I think we talk about people of color, but we also remember there's the intersections between the people of color as well as other people with marginalized identities or who have complex marginalized identities that do experience life in a way that is much worse than how some of us do experience it. So find your voice and also give voice to other individuals so they can advocate for themselves as well. So I think I'm gonna stop here, but the paper is published and we continue to work on other papers, through this autoethnography as a way also to promote our voices, promote individuals who are also coming up in the publishing world so that they can have the opportunity to also have their work out there, as they progress in the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? I'm checking the chat box. Thank you for the presentation. Great work, and I can attest to how much people enjoy it. Thank you, Dr. Conyers, and for allowing us to join your staff to do the same retreat. And then we've posted the paper, which is published. So if anybody would like to download it, you can go to the chat box and see it. One of the questions is, how long did the research take, Dr. Kechi?
Yeah. I'll tell you, one of the good things about autoethnography is you could get, if you get your group to understand the time sensitivity for what you want to do, you could get this work done in, 8 to 12 months. So this work here, the first paper took us about 6 months. And that was because, we had deadlines that we followed. So we set deadlines for ourselves from the time that we write our proposal, to the time, we do our IRB. That's the other thing I forgot to mention, the IRB, because even though it's autoethnography, and it is your experience that you are sharing, in order, because of gatekeeping in academic publishing, you want to follow that protocol about seeking IRB approval, but also you have to maintain the privacy and confidentiality of the individual. So especially when the topic you're discussing is very sensitive, or in the environment we are in now, right? It's really, really important to make sure that you're protecting individuals who are participating. So it took us about, I think 6 to 8 months. And because we published it in the ABNF Foundation Journal, we got it right before they closed, because it's published 3 times or 4 times a day. So we got it in just before it was closed for that session. So from the time of submission to publication was about 3 months, which was actually great. So, but if we had missed their deadline for their first publication of the year, we would have had to wait maybe another 5 months, but so we targeted it so that we submitted it right on time before they closed the window for the first publication of 2024. But if you wanted to do autoethnography, you have to remember that, one of the individuals, preferably the person who works in a university that have an IRB, should be your point of contact for getting your IRB approval. And everybody else still have to, connect to their own institutions, but it goes through one set because they will do what they call reciprocity, I believe. So that doesn't take long at all, especially when what you are doing, the research you are doing is on yourself. So it's a little easier that way, but you still have to protect people. All the names you will see is different. So we all choose our own pseudonyms. And as the person who was leading the team, when it was done, I changed the pseudonyms again. So people, when we have the collective data, nobody knows who is who, because the point is to have an aggregate data. So we choose our pseudonyms for our narratives, and then once the narratives are collected, then the lead will go in and change it all over again, so that when the collective data is analyzed, you cannot tell who is who or where the quotes are coming from. So those are some of the ways you also need to protect individuals.
We have a comment. Yes, absolutely. That is understood. Thank you. This really resonates with my experience. I can't wait to read your article. Any other questions or comments?
If you can get access, just send me a message through LinkedIn and I'll get it to you. We have to find the full text from somewhere. So if you don't have access, I'll make sure to get it to you.
Great. Thank you for offering to do that. Anybody else? I think these two topics were really, really timely. Dr. Stancil-El, do you offer to run your workshops at other places? Would that be something that you would do? Because that seems like a really great project to have to provide other hospitals or institutions that really do not have experience with diversity.
Yeah, so that is something with my Life Matters LLC, that is something that I do. I usually connect with Carly Goff because she is more polished in this work, because this is all she does. Is she works currently at Yale University, but like Dr. Conyers put in the chat, we did recently do this in September at University of Maryland School of Nursing, which I loved. We did more because it was longer. So we did different activities for her group, and some of the similar activities that we did for my group as well. So yeah, we do.
Oh, great. All right, anybody, any questions or comments? I don't think that Dr. McCabe was able to join us, but I think that both of you ladies did a great job. So I want to thank you for presenting the work that you do. It's so important. Oh, we have a question. Dr. Valdez.
Oh, no, it's clapping. It's not a hand. It's
Oh,
clapping.
sorry.
I'm just saying thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, all right, so thank you. Any other comments? No? All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us. This has been recorded, so you will be able to listen to the presentations if you should need to, and it'll be shared for everybody who couldn't be here tonight. So thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.